Imagine a world without thrones, no golden crowns, no royal decrees, just tribes huddled around fires, spears in hand, and one big question: who gets to lead? Hey everyone, welcome to the wild, bloody, and surprisingly logical story of why kings sat on thrones for thousands of years while queens were the exception. Today we're going on a time travel adventure, from cave paintings to modern palaces. Grab your imaginary sword, or scepter. Let's begin. Back in prehistoric times, around 10,000 years ago, leadership wasn't about bloodlines. It was about who could protect the group, who could hunt the mammoth, who could fight off the rival tribe. In most places, that job fell to the strongest warriors, usually men. Not because men were smarter, but because biology and constant warfare made physical strength a deadly advantage. Women were absolutely vital. They gathered food, raised children, preserved knowledge, and often led in spiritual or healing roles. Some early societies even showed matriarchal traces. But when survival meant swinging a club or throwing a spear, the leader who could win fights got the final say. Fast forward to the first real civilizations: Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, and early China. Cities grew, armies grew, and suddenly leadership became about commanding thousands of soldiers. This is where the king trend really locked in. War was constant. A ruler had to lead charges, negotiate with enemy kings who respected brute strength, and, most importantly, produce a strong heir who could take over without the kingdom collapsing into civil war. Male primogeniture, oldest son inherits, became the golden rule. A son was seen as more likely to become a warrior king who could defend the realm. But here's the entertaining twist history loves to throw at us. Egypt had Hatshepsut, one of the greatest pharaohs ever. She ruled for over 20 years, built magnificent temples, sent trade expeditions, and brought prosperity. Centuries later came Cleopatra, brilliant, charismatic, and playing the Game of Thrones like a master. So women could rule brilliantly. But they were rare exceptions. Most societies developed deep cultural and religious stories that said kings were divinely chosen, God's representative on earth, and that naturally meant men. Jump to the Middle Ages in Europe: feudalism, knights, castles. This era supercharged the king system. A king wasn't just a ruler, he was a warlord who had to personally lead armies into battle. Think William the Conqueror or Charlemagne. Daughters were valuable for marriage alliances, but sons were the ones expected to swing the sword and wear the armor. Plus, there was the idea of the divine right of kings. The church mostly backed this, and inheritance laws were written by men for men. If a king died without a son, chaos often followed. Just look at the Wars of the Roses in England. Cousins fighting cousins for years because the rightful male line was messy, but every rule has its rebels. England got Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen who outsmarted the Spanish Armada and turned England into a naval powerhouse. She famously said she had the heart and stomach of a king. Russia had Catherine the Great, who expanded the empire massively, and Queen Victoria of Britain ruled an empire where the sun never set. These queens proved women could be just as shrewd, strategic, and tough as any king, so why didn't queens become the default? The honest answer is a mix of practicality, culture, and raw survival math. First, warfare. For most of history, the main job of a monarch was defending or expanding territory. Male upper body strength and aggression gave men an edge in hand-to-hand combat eras. Second, childbirth risk. Queens often died young in childbirth. A king could have many children with different wives. A queen's death could destabilize everything. Third, patriarchy and religion. Stories, scriptures, and traditions across many cultures placed men as public leaders. This created a self-reinforcing loop that lasted centuries. And fourth, stability. Male-only succession reduced disputes. People knew the next ruler would be the eldest son. Predictability meant fewer civil wars, at least in theory. Now, fast forward to today, the world changed. Guns and technology leveled the physical playing field. Democracies rose. Science and education replaced brute strength with brains and leadership skills. Constitutional monarchies turned kings and queens into symbolic figures, representing continuity and national identity rather than absolute power. We've seen powerful modern queens, Elizabeth II, the longest reigning British monarch, a symbol of stability for 70 years. And in places like Sweden and Norway, laws changed so the firstborn child, boy or girl, inherits the throne. Yet some monarchies still prefer males in certain succession lines. Old habits die hard. So why did the king trend start? It wasn't a conspiracy against women. It was a brutally practical response to a world full of spears, sieges, and short lifespans. Men were, on average, better suited for the primary job description of ancient and medieval rulers, warrior protector. But here's the beautiful conclusion. History shows ability matters more than gender. The greatest rulers, male or female, were the ones who were wise, decisive, and cared about their people. Today we live in an era where leadership is less about swinging swords and more about vision, empathy, diplomacy, and intelligence. And in that world, anyone can wear the crown. The story of kings wasn't about men being better, it was about survival shaping tradition. Now we get to write new chapters. What do you think? Should more countries have absolute primogeniture regardless of gender? Drop your thoughts below. Thanks for time traveling with me today. If you enjoyed this, hit like, share your favorite queen or king in the comments, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay curious.